Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's De-JOE-tional. Yep, I am back home now, and it feels so good to be home from the hospital. Susan is doing great. She had her central line removed today, so now we just sit and recover. So that's very cool. So I'm glad to be home and glad to be recording from here instead of the hospital room over at Barnes. Hey, before I get into this week's chapter, I want to let you know that starting in May, we're going to have a couple new online offerings for you. Pastor Jay is putting together a Monday thing. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it's going to be something fun. I know that. And then Tuesday is still going to be his Coffee, Christ, and Conversation. He told me what he was going to do on Mondays, and it sounds like it's going to be pretty entertaining. So looking forward to that. And then on May 4th, I'm starting a new online program, I guess you want to call it, called Out of the Box. And each week I'm going to be visiting either someone in our congregation or someone in our community and talking about their faith journey, maybe a project they're part of or a ministry that they're part of. And it's going to be about 30 minutes long. The first week is going to be, of course, Pastor Jay, and it's going to be out of the box because it's not going to be recorded in the church. It's going to be out on location each time. And it's going to be kind of a talk show-y format. Really looking forward to that. I've been really planning and thinking about it and changing ideas and all that for a few months now. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to debut on Wednesday, May 4th, which also happens to be Pastor Jay's birthday. So my birthday present to him will be to have him as my first guest on the worldwide premiere of Out of the Box. And then Thursday, of course, we will still do De-JOE-tional. So, speaking of De-JOE-tional, here's this week's offering. We are still going through If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk by John Pavlovitz. And this week's chapter is Doppleganger God. Now, what's a doppelganger? Most of you, I'm sure, know. Doppelganger, it's your double or your twin. And scientists claim that statistically speaking, everyone has at least 6 doppelgangers in this world. That means there are probably 7 of this out there in the world. Soak it in. That's right. Scary thought. Anyway, so this week, there's multiple Joes and there's multiple Jays and there's multiple Susans and multiple Marshes and Barbs and all this kind of stuff. So, what about multiple gods? Ooh, that's what our chapter's about this week. The author tells us of a story in the beginning of this chapter of him visiting theme park, Universal Studios or Disney World, one of those two down in Florida. And he goes with his family into a 4D show. Now, for those of you that don't know what 4D, you're familiar with 3D, right? You put on the glasses and things look like they're popping out of the screen. Well, 4D is that same thing. You have your 3D glasses on, but you're also feeling movement in your seat or wind blowing at you. I know there's one in Florida that you feel mist coming at you. So you have the feeling part of it. That's the 4th D. So he was in a show like that, and he's watching it, and everything it looks awful. He doesn't understand what the appeal is. It's blurry. It's not clear. And he's looking around, and everybody is just enjoying themselves. They're having a blast with it, and he just can't wait for this to be over. And they get done, and everybody is like, oh man, that was the best thing ever. That was the coolest. Let's go get back in line again. And he's like, seriously? That was awful. I don't get it. And then as he and his wife were walking out of the theater, she noticed that his 3D glasses were on top of his head. He was still wearing his regular glasses, so he didn't get that 3D effect. And that's why everything looked blurry and he wasn't really getting it. The lenses through which we view the world matter. We tend to assume that everyone thinks or has the same experience as we do, and that their lenses or filters match our own lenses or filters. We often use the phrase, we're all in the same boat. I heard it many times during the pandemic. But the truth is, we were all in the same storm, but not necessarily the same boat. In some cases, we were in very, very different boats. But we all think that everyone in our circle thinks, believes, and acts the way we do. We're all similar. That's what we do as people. When we go into a new place, we congregate towards the people that look like us or sound like us or believe like us, if we can have that kind of context in a new group. For example, when Susan and I will go to a dinner party or something with friends, and all the men are in the garage talking shop, and all the women are out on the patio talking gossip. Now, I may look like the men, but I clearly know nothing about shop. I know nothing about electronics, mechanics, nothing. I can't talk cars, color, and comfort. That's what I know about cars. So I can't do that, but I can gossip all day. So context is important. Anyway, when we go into our circles, we believe that the people around us act the same way we do. And that's just not the case. There may be some similarities, but we are all, in fact, different. The way we view our community, our family, our country, our church, and our faith are impacted by the life experiences that we each individually face. There are roughly 2.4 billion, with a B, 2.4 billion Christians in the world. Not just faithful people or people of religion. There are 2.4 billion Christians in the world. Yet our beliefs collide every day. How is that possible? Don't we all read the same Bible? Don't we all worship the same God? Don't we all celebrate the life, death, and resurrection of the same Jesus Christ? It's because those of us who consider ourselves to be believers in some capacity make God either slightly or substantially in our own image. The picture of our divine is formed by the homes and families in which we were raised, the teachers we had, the faith communities we grew up in, our Sunday school teachers, our pastors, our individual life experiences, our personality types, and even our own physicality. Let me ask you this question. Guys, do you view God as a he? We were raised that, like we talked about last week, raised to believe that he is a he, an old white guy with a long white beard and long white hair, speaking in the clouds down at everyone. Women, is that the same picture of God that you have? All right, because of that, every verse we read or Bible story we hear is shaped to match our passions, confirm our prejudices, ratify our politics, and echo the story we tell ourselves. Because those lenses have shaped the gospel stories we've read and had preached to us, we tend to worship a God of confirmation bias. Our God believes the same way we believe. Our God is as personalized and individually customized as our experiences. Therefore, consider that there may be as many Jesuses in this world as there are people claiming belief in him. If we're all viewing God in our own image, do you think the people in Africa view God as the old white guy with a long white hair and long white beard? How about the people in the Middle East? How about the people in Asia? Do they all view God the same way? Do they have the same picture of God in their head that way? So I ask this: who is right? Which God is the right God? We like to picture ourselves as the earnest and faithful disciples alongside Jesus, and not the self-righteous religious frauds whose hypocrisy he's condemning. We like to consider ourselves the good Samaritan rescuing the man on the side of the road, not those callous people walking by. We're always the persecuted woman, never the chastised stone throwers. Since we tend to think of ourselves as good people, and our definition of God most resembles our individual beliefs, it becomes a huge problem, because we will argue that our God is the right God. It's the reason why we have so many denominations. I Googled this. There are over 45,000 Christian denominations worldwide. We tend to think of Catholic, Methodist, Presbyterian, Baptist, whatever. There are over 45,000 Christian denominations worldwide, all worshiping the same God, all worshiping the same Jesus, all reading the same Bible. Which one is right? I'm going to read an excerpt for you from page 104. The gospel writer John shares the story of Jesus calling himself the Good Shepherd. He reminds us that Jesus is far more complex than we are usually comfortable with. Yes, he's the tender shepherd to the sheep, to those he sees as harassed and helpless. He is a gentle and compassionate pastoral presence. But not to the wolves, not to the religious leaders and the power holders and the predators. To them, he's a holy terror. To those personally and collectively threatening the sheep, he is a fierce and public adversary. In both this description of himself and in his public life and ministry, Jesus is both compassionate personal caregiver and radical system influencer. He is a learner of stories and a status quo challenger. He is both pastor and activist. He's a table setter and a table overturner. Can we make room for these very different Jesuses? Can we embrace the Jesus who withdrew to quiet places to pray, and the one who made a whip out of cords and confronted the temple vendors? Can we balance the shepherd Jesus with the activist Jesus? The one who said, love your enemies, and the one who said, love the least. Likewise, can we imagine ourselves as recipients of both his tender care and his sharp critique? Can we find the fullest, deepest understanding of what it means to be Christian and try to manifest this at this place and time in the history of this planet? That's the kind of scale of love that we're talking about. Susan B. Anthony once said, "I distrust those who know so well what God wants because I notice it coincides with their own desires." We're all different, and we all have different views of who or what God is. The problem is that we all assume that we're right. And as I mentioned last week, those who we deem are wrong are going straight to hell. The fact is, as I've mentioned before, God is infinite, and there is no way any of us can know everything about him or be an expert on God. So don't be so firm in your stance. I pray that you open your hearts and you open your minds to allow other people's interpretation of who or what God is in their lives. You may think they're wrong. They think you're wrong because we all have a picture of what God is in our own hearts. And nobody is wrong. That's my De-JOE-tional for this week. Blessings, Godfrey First. We'll see you Sunday for Easter. Easter Sunday, this Sunday. We'll see you then.